Audio.
A quick thanks before we start the show. Filmmaking Confidential, the book, is getting rave reviews from readers, filmmakers, film professors, and even people in creative fields other than filmmaking. I just want to say thank you to all of you who ordered it and for your support. If you haven't yet picked it up and you want to learn more filmmaking secrets, Filmmaking Confidential is for you. It's available wherever books are sold in most countries around the world. Order it by visiting Audible or Amazon. To find out more, check out filmmakingconfidential.com and stevebalderson.com. And thank you. I'm Steve Balderson, and you're listening to the Filmmaking Confidential podcast. Each week, we meet with filmmakers, writers, actors, artists, and other notables. Many episodes include questions or commentary from other filmmakers listening to the conversation. Today's guest is cult actress Debbie Rochon. With numerous awards honoring her roles in over 250 films, Debbie is often referred to as the Meryl Streep of horror.
Your secret's safe with me. You, of all people, can't point fingers, my dear.
Named one of the top scream queens of the past 40 years by Entertainment Tonight, Debbie is also an accomplished director. When we sat down, I asked her what happened on set for a 2003 film she was acting in that changed the way she approached filmmaking forever.
I was on a film set and I was given a live machete. And it was, the first one I was given was a prop, but it didn't look good on camera. So we had done this scene a number of times and they said, oh, there's another prop. Just take that one. Let's keep rolling. We're losing the sun. It was literally my last shot in the whole film. I was done, but they wanted to redo it with a better looking on camera machete. So I was like, yeah, okay, let's go. I know the scene different. They switched out the prop master, and did the scene. Grabbed the machete, walked over to the fake dead corpse. And you know, there's no hitch on a machete, right? So just wailed down, like jumped off the ground and wailed down onto this, fake corpse. And my hand just slid right down the blade and it cut off my fingers, except for the bone. And I had to have 2 operations to get it to be at this point. So safety, yes, safety. That was horrible. It took me about 5 years to feel safe on a set again. It took me a couple of years to really do anything substantial. I think it was a couple of months after the accident, I did a movie with Lloyd, ironically. And but it was a really small thing. It was out on Long Island. It was just, it was an overnight shoot in a video store. And I still had my hand in a cast. I just had my first operation and I just spray painted the whole thing black. So it wasn't so standing out white. And I did small things as time went on, but took a long time to feel really comfortable with weaponry, even though they're fake or they're, you have stunt people, not stunt people working for you in indie movies, but safety people working with you. But I mean, from that moment on, I never would just completely take somebody's word for it. Not because I didn't believe them or trust them. It was because mistakes happen. They happen, and and we've seen it in other movies. Brandon Lee, perfect example. Everybody brings up that wonderful actor who was also a model, Eric. I forget his name now. Oh my goodness! But it was also he jokingly put a gun to his head that had a fake bullet in it, and he was on set and he just pulled the trigger and that was it. I mean, mistakes happen all the time. People have passed on The Walking Dead. There's been stunts on The Walking Dead where some stunt people have lost their lives, and it was nothing to do with, that makes it a bad show. No, it means that it's not, you don't assume that everything you see is completely safe. There are some people taking some big chances. Look at like Mad Max, when there was no CGI. There was none. All the car flips and motorcycle flips and all this insanity was beyond real. Also Australian, which, those guys are crazy back then. So they were doing everything. But anyway, yeah. So that's what happened to me.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I feel like you have had 9 lives or 24. So have you ever been pronounced legally dead?
But well, actually, ironically, a couple of times I came so close. I was never pronounced dead. So, I've never gone into a casket and, clawed my way out. I've only done that in the movies. So, there was a couple times in real life where it was really, really close, where I had my head cracked open with a tire iron. That was a real thing. That wasn't a movie. These two things are real things. They're not movies. And I had lost so much blood. I couldn't stand up for a month, but I couldn't go in the hospital because at that time I was just a kid living on the street and I was a runaway. So if I went to the hospital, then the police would be called. So I ran out of the hospital after they stitched up my head, but I couldn't stand for over a month. And I probably should have been in a hospital. Probably, right? I mean, you would think. So, something could have happened there. Didn't. Was too young and dumb, I guess, or innocent. There you go. To know that. Probably about 3 years ago, I went into septic shock and came very close to dying. And all of my organs were shutting down and my blood pressure was so low. And the whole time, it's so funny because when you're in that headspace, the whole time I'm telling them, everything's going to be okay. My blood pressure is going to come up. It's low naturally. I thought they were crazy. Like that's how gone I was, because something happens to your mind. And I wasn't one of these people who's freaking out. No, because I was like in a whole nother plane. And I was just like, in my mind, you folks are so overreacting. You just got to calm your shit down. Like everything's going to be fine. But, at the same time, I knew something was really weird because I saw like Rondo Hatton was in my doorway in the hospital. And I was like, he's not really there, but like I see him 3D. That's very interesting. Like your mind is like so close to being gone. And there was this one point where I saw this guy, young guy in a hoodie, and it was a black hoodie, just, zip up, and he had a camera on his shoulder and he was walking down the hall towards my room. And I thought, he's not real, but that's interesting that he has a camera, probably why I'm hallucinating that. And then my doctor said to me, well, he was kind of like a modern day Grim Reaper, if you think about it, because, he had the black thing on. And that was his interpretation, but it did make a lot of sense. So yeah, there's been a couple times it's been pretty close. But
I love that he had a camera, like he was going to film it and document it.
That was so weird. And like those old big ones, like a VHS one, not a film one, but like one that sat on his shoulder. So yeah, interesting.
Okay, so you were a street kid, and at what point, how did you get from the street to an actor in New York City?
Because I spent 3 months as an extra on a movie. That's the short answer. And they gave me $300 cash back then. This was like 1980. So this was like $1 trillion to me. And I was just, it was the first time I was ever acknowledged at all in a positive way, like good feedback. The assistant director who was directing the extras, which is what I was. It was the same group of people that were there for the whole 3 months. We were obsessed with Diane Lane. She was in a rock group or a punk rock group. And all the other girls, it fascinated me because they were just couldn't care less about the movie. They thought it was going to be exciting, when in fact it's a lot of sitting around and they weren't interested. But on the other hand, myself, I was like, the assistant director, Tommy, would say, okay, now look like this. And that's all I would do, is just obsessively try to do what he was saying. And so the day that he came over and said, that was really good, it was like the first time in my whole life I'd been acknowledged. It wasn't about, ego, but it was just about being, someone even noticed I was alive. And so I just was like, wow, okay, so I want to repeat this. Like, people acknowledge that. And also, being drawn, so that's what drew me into film. But being drawn into horror, I've always had like I always felt like the roles are just so much better. And I always say that, but also we all have different things to express. Like, we can all do various roles, you can direct various movies and have your input, but you are drawn to certain types. You know what I mean? Like, we all have like things that we prefer to express. So within me lies, this endless pit of stuff for me to draw from that just seems to suit cult and horror movies best.
Would you say that, like, the surroundings of your world, is it filled with all things horror, or is horror an escape place?
Kind of both. Like, I do have a lot of things because I've been sent a lot of things throughout the years. And I have, I really do like Halloween versus Christmas, if I was to choose the two. But at the same time, I mean, what do I value? I value character. I value peace. I value hard work. I value things that are very different than if it was just like, hail Satan, all this kind of weird stuff. I'm religious. I believe in God, my kind of God. I don't go to church, so it's not like that. So that's weird. That's not something that I talk about, because most people, not all, but a lot of people into horror movies are like, all about, yeah, Satan, man, Satan. But I can't relate to that, because I know, just putting it simply, that there's good and evil. So, I mean, like, I know there's good and evil in people, in the world, but in people. And I would rather be around good. And then, do all my friends like horror movies? No. Did they have to? No. But some people are really hardcore, and like everything has to, fall into place. It has to be the same music, same movies, same, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I have a wide variety of stuff that I like. Actually, above horror movies by far, I would say that I love cult movies way more than horror movies. I love horror movies, but cult movies, that's really where it's at. Like, in true indie cult movies, my favorite.
Cool.
Yeah.
Your work ethic is incredible. Has it always been?
Yes and no. It's probably been, well, it's just changed, really. I mean, like, it always has been intense in some way or another. I find since the starting of the writing of the book, having to deal with like a lot of stuff that kind of like, I have no writer's block at all. Like, it does not exist, but it's dealing with the elements very, very, very hard. Very hard. I wrote something for a book that just came out, but it was just a small, tiny piece. And it was just like not easy, but I just quickly did it. I knew what I wanted to say, and I love doing it. And I was just like, boom, okay, there it is. But the book, that's been my, Ayers Rock, if we were in Australia. It's been my, Everest or my something, because even writing any book is going to be hard. But when you're talking about, okay, you have to go to all the places that you pretended for at least 4 decades didn't exist. So now, hello.
How far along in the process are you?
Quite far. I mean, it depends on if I use everything that I've written. So, I mean, I hate to use percentages, because on one hand, I'm am far along because I've been, I work on it almost every day, but different degrees, even if it's just a half an hour, or it could be 4 hours, or it could be. So hard to say. I don't really like to say yet, because there's some pieces that are not necessarily necessary to be in there to be able to tell my story. Because at the end of the day, it has to be completely pure and nothing but the truth. But you have to kind of decide that it's the small things and the big things. Like, you don't have to use everybody's name, for example. And by that, I mean people that you never have heard of. I just mean people who I don't even know if they're alive still, that I knew as a teenager. But it's unimportant whether it's Ben or Lynn. Like, it's just not important. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's multi-layered and multi-emotional. I don't even know if I answered your question, but.
You did. And then halfway through, I realized that there is really no way to answer that question, because you're telling a story. And when you're finished telling the story, you'll know you're finished telling the story.
Yeah, I know. The funny thing is, one of the first things I did was write the ending. It's not even, it's not my style. I don't do that. I've never done it before. But that just seemed to be like the thing that I just had to get out, because I knew it. I saw it in my mind. I just saw exactly where it ends. And so that was easy. That was actually an easy 30 pages. I don't know why, but I saw that. The other pieces they're harder. And then it gets really technical and probably not that interesting to listen to, but it gets more technical. Like, you really have to be very, very careful that you're telling things in the right order. So quite often my source of, after so much suppression, after so many decades of, that's the only way I've been able to deal with it seriously. But my only way to rip out, when did this happen, is I think to myself, what song was playing? Okay, now I can go on the computer and I can look up what year did that song come out. And then I'll have like a rough estimate, because maybe I heard it a couple years after, right? We're not sure, but at least, so I'm using music as kind of like this weird guideline. We all get our that imprint from something in pop culture. Okay, what year did that toy come out, or that song, or that movie, or something, whatever triggers. Because it's all about triggering. You know how a song or of anything, an object, a commercial on TV, everything can come kind of flooding back. So a lot of times I'll want to listen to like classical music or something that just makes me feel, that's really dramatic, mind you, but makes me like really feel like, the power of the writing in the background. But then what really will like capture the moment is like, put on some Clash. That's what was going on then.
Debbie Rochon. Another great guest is Academy Award nominee and Golden Globe winner Sally Kirkland.
And my girlfriend had told me, Sally, you're going to have to fuck him. You're going to have to. This is the lead role in The Godfather. And I said, but I've been celibate for however many months I can. I'm celibate. And she said, Sally, this is Francis Ford Coppola. You're going to have to fuck him.
You can hear my full interview with Sally at filmmakingconfidential.com or by subscribing for free to this podcast. Coming up, Debbie Rochon on Cinemax, horror, and directing her first feature film, Model Hunger. I'm Steve Balderson, and you're listening to the Filmmaking Confidential podcast. Back after this. I'm Steve Balderson, and this is the Filmmaking Confidential podcast. I'm back with Debbie Rochon.
Getting yourself on a damn set, because everything was shot in film. There wasn't many movies being made at any given time that were indie, that weren't like so big that, it would almost, not impossible, it's never impossible, but really difficult to get in on that. So in the meantime, do you still want to work while you're, attempting your thing and going to class and everything? So yes, I did. So these were your choices. Roberta Finley, I worked with her, worked with Chuck Vincent, worked with all these people that, back for the majority of their career, they did porn, and then they went into horror movies or exploitation movies, stuff like that. And I was in Chuck Vincent's, I'm pretty sure it was his last movie or second to last movie, Party Incorporated. And I just had like a comedic role that was throughout, but it was Marilyn Chambers' first non-porn movie where she sang a song, even like she sang a damn song in a mall. She's in a mall shopping and she bursts into a song and the, music's coming on. Weird, but still like, so, I mean, like interesting stuff. You got to meet a lot of people who, were really unusual people, and people that were more like me in the sense that in their whole lives, they were really pushed to the side by the majority. They were really like marginalized. And, that's a word that's thrown around a lot, but it's really, really true. So, I mean, you had to say, and now you can look back and you say, oh, well, I did this, I had fun, I have no regrets, but, in a perfect world, maybe I wouldn't have done that or that, but F it, who cares?
I agree. I don't have any regrets because I feel like every choice that I made has led to me being here today. And maybe there was a bad experience, or it could have been a mistake, but I learned something always. Yeah.
Always. Even if you learned what you didn't want to do, you learned something, right? I mean,
totally. Cool. That's my favorite thing is that like, okay, we can make a decision, we can make a choice. And then if whatever happens, if we don't like that, we can choose again. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Just that's it. And you know what? You oftentimes like on the shittiest situations or in the shittiest situations, you can meet somebody who then you're like, wow, okay, I parlayed this into this really cool thing because, they were doing this and they thought of me because they met me on that crazy thing. And you just don't know. And certainly back then, now, of course, today too, to a lesser extent, but back then, unless you got in front of people, literally in front of people, met people, there was no way to be called or considered for anything. That was it. You had to show up.
Had you always written, or was there a point where you started writing?
Well, I always had a journal to a certain degree, now and again. And the funny thing was, I am so self-deprecating, but I will say this. I had written something. I was living in London. I had written something and I had gone back to Vancouver at this point, and I had read what I had written. And I was like, I wrote that? That's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing, of course. I mean, but I liked it, and I remember liking it, and I thought that's interesting. And then many years later, I started writing, like the early 90s. I started writing for various magazines, and then I had the column in the Joe Bob Report and stuff like that. So in the 90s really is when I started to write, and that was at first it was like very just so saccharine. And everything is just so fantastic, and just the most softball, made of like I have to say soft fake fur ball questions that you could ever come up with when I would interview people, just like night and day. I mean, but that's how I started. Like, you just didn't want to, offend, and then I started like really writing more and more based in what was really going on. And nobody was doing that because it was very like a very sycophant type of world. Like, everybody's very outspoken now on social media anyway, and on a lot of websites too. Like, they have no problem just smacking down somebody's entire, 30, 40 years in the business, just in one sentence, just poo-pooing the whole thing because whatever. But then it was far more, if you got covered, you would be pretty much treated with kid gloves, because I don't know why, really. I think we just really liked each other, and,
When did you know you wanted to direct?
I had always wanted to direct. However, I always knew I was always okay never directing, because I said to myself, if the right project comes along, I will know it, right? And whether I do great or I bungle it or I fall somewhere in between, great. But I will know it. I am not just going to do it for the sake of doing it. I had 2 or 3 people who came to me over the years, like in the 2000s, I think, with scripts and a paycheck. And they were like, and it was such trash. It was just women getting naked, women getting killed, all this. It was just like, there was nothing to get behind, even, regardless of a paycheck. I mean, it was just, there was nothing to get behind. And I knew that if I was to only ever do it once, that is not it. Like, that is just not it. And so, like, if I was to do it once, least of all, I wanted it to be something I truly, truly believe in. And so that was that script. And so I was like, okay, now is the time. But I was willing to never do it if I never found that script, meaning the one that got the wheels turning.
What was the process of that being on that end of the world of film?
It was, you always think how it's going to go, because you've been on so many sets, right? You think you know how it's going to go. And for the most part, it did. But there were certain elements of wrangling people, right, that on an indie film that you have to do, that you would not have to do, say, on a really big budget film. If you do on a big budget film, it's very different. Each department probably wrangles themselves. It's sort of like compartmentalized, and they're not going to like be bothering the director with the little shenanigans going on, and so-and-so's fighting with so-and-so, which has nothing to do with the movie. That stuff gets more suppressed, I'm sure it does. Whereas on an indie movie, if there's any, having nothing to do with the movie, keep in mind, but if there's any issues going on, it's like, you are so here for this, like the square. What is in the square? What is happening in that square? That's all that matters. And to wrap your brain around, there could be anything else of interest to people, kind of blows your mind. Do you know what I mean? As a director, how many things that you've directed, like, it just blows your mind that people are just not on that same page. I don't know.
Did you also produce your movie?
I did not produce it. I didn't line produce it. I didn't, you know how it goes. I had a lot of say. Greg Lamberson did like a lot of location scouting in Buffalo. He did the line producing. James Mogart did the executive producing. So I did the producing in the sense of what ends up being called producing in today's day and age of, the casting and the going through all of the special effects with the special effects people, and, getting like sort of putting all the building blocks together of who's going to be on the team, those sort of elements. The money element, no. The day-to-day line producing, no. So the rewriting of the script, thank you, James, for allowing me to do that. Nothing was like changed dramatically, but just that he allowed me to have fun with the script was everything, because he was not only paying for the movie, but he wrote the movie. So it could be exactly what he wanted. But all he said was, you need to make your movie. Like, you need to do this. And he just said, I just have this feeling that you need to do this. And he was right. And so when I would take something like a 10-page monologue and just take it out, and then just tell the actor, Michael Thurber, sorry, Michael, those amazing 10 pages that you were going to say and you were so excited to do. Now it's just in one image saying we're doing cinema of you just handing something to somebody with a look on your face. And that's going to say all that. Everybody was good with it. So, I mean, that's collaboration. I mean, that's filmmaking. Stuff has to change. It's a visual medium. It's not a talk. Too much talking sometimes.
Had you worked with Lynn Lowry before?
Not in person. She was in like 2 or 3 movies that I was in, never at the same time. We were on set different times. But I'd never worked with her before in person. And I certainly never directed her before because I never directed before.
How was that directing her?
Amazing. Because when we were on the exact same page that she was, in fact, like a Tennessee Williams character in a horror movie, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Tennessee Williams is basically a horror writer. I mean, to some degree.
Yeah. So she was Blanche Dubois put in this horrible situation. I mean, and that was just like the magic of like that concept just going with it. And it was just perfect. She was amazing in that movie. Really.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Unbelievable, really. And is it not exciting when somebody does so well in something that you've made that they're asked to do so many other things because of it? And I don't even give a shit what the directors think of Model Hunger. I don't care. I love the fact that they could love it or hate it. I love the fact that they say, Lynn Lowry, wow, oh my God, and think of roles for her from it. So, I mean, that is like the biggest compliment.
Debbie's first feature film, Model Hunger.
You know, a young woman such as yourself should not be hitchhiking. Come on.
That little old lady, Jenny, the one who lives next door, the one you think worships Satan.
The search for Melissa Wallace and Catherine McGovern continues on.
Well, why don't you girls come on inside and we can discuss what you have to offer me? Younger, prettier girls always got the roles.
That was a sound bite for Debbie's film Model Hunger, starring Lynn Lowry.
Did you make your second movie, or has it not been filmed yet?
I haven't filmed it yet. I have a script, and it kind of worked out. Better because this way it gives me time to raise more money, and do the book so that I can finish the book, and then as things are improving, which they will soon now. Finally, be able to do Torment Road. So, whether that's 2021 or early 2022, I don't know. But it's a lot sooner than if things didn't go the way they did.
Exactly. That was such a civilized way of saying that. Do you have a title for your book?
Yes. From the underbelly to the underground.
Good title.
Yeah. It's true. It's truthful.
My first experience going to a convention where vendors and actors are selling their merchandise. And it was just this whole wide opening aha with how to market and sustain your career as an independent artist today. Mm-hmm. Have you always been active in that aspect of marketing yourself?
Well, I've always had to market myself from day one. I mean, because nobody else is going to do it. So that was always a big part of why I would see things and see opportunities and try to say I worked with a director on project A, and I knew, this person over here was doing either a write-up or something on that type of movie. I would just immediately put them together. It wouldn't have to be literally me, but if it was something I was involved with, it benefits everybody. And so, unlike a lot of people that I really don't care for in the business that are like so self-important and they have to be male or female, it's just a term, belle of the ball. You really don't care to work for that type of person or with that type of person. My favorite type is like anybody who's a team player, anybody likes ensemble stuff, anybody who likes to create together. You know what I mean? That's my favorite thing. I went off on a tangent, but it's really important because often when you make a movie and, it didn't go that way and it was kind of for whatever reason, and there's many stories, didn't go well, that you just kind of, move on. And then you find somebody that you're like, oh my God, they're pure of heart, or they're good people and their movie's great. And it was such a good experience. And then you just go to bat for them. You just call up everybody that you know. Come on, man. I know you have a zine that reaches 5 people, but damn it, put this movie in there, do a page thing on it. I don't care. And you just keep throwing the spaghetti at the wall and just keep at it. And that was, I guess that was our day's social media.
Yeah.
In a way.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the best advice anybody ever gave you?
Oh, well, the best advice anybody ever gave me, I didn't take. So pretty bad on my part, but not theirs. Best advice I was ever given was I'd made a few movies with Gunnar Hansen. And he said to me, Debbie, would you stop underselling yourself? Meaning whether it's pay or anything, like if it was at a convention, the price to me, I was just happy to promote. So if I was able to, I would love to give things away. I wasn't into soaking everybody, and he wasn't either, but there's a fine line. I mean, you have to have a good sense of self-worth so that other people have it for you, because apparently people won't have it for you if you don't have it for yourself. So, which is kind of sad, because it's too bad that we all can't be just, a little bit more, I don't know, soft or whatever, but it's really true. It's not the most talented people that make it. It's the ones that are just voraciously, relentlessly, and even, evilly, sometimes, not everybody, that go after it. Those are the ones that are successful. So there's something to be said for both sides. But that was his advice. He would say, I mean, he got me a role, which was the highest paying role I ever had. He got it for me. Of course he did. Of course he did. That was his advice to me. And he said, okay, we're going to do these pictures. This was for one particular movie, Hellblock. And he's like, okay, but I'm telling you right now, and it's got nothing to do with me. He said, me as in him. He said, but I'm signing all these for you to sell, and you're not going to sell them for less than X, because you need to make a little bit of money for your time and effort and all this stuff. And again, it wasn't about gouging. It wasn't about that. It was just about, come on, got to get your self-worth up there, because you came from none. So, you put in all the work, you put in the couple decades in acting class and starting out working for free in student films, probably did 150 student films, probably did 150 stage plays for free. Come on, it's like any career. I mean, sooner or later, a banker should probably get paid if he's been an auditor for free for 30 years. At some point, his or her wife will say, honey, one day, maybe you should probably think about getting paid for it. So it's like that, really. In 92, say I went to my first convention and, I was invited, had a table, blah, blah, blah. I think it was the first chiller convention in New Jersey that existed. And I was there, and I remember Bruce Campbell was there, but it was fun. It was fun. Just F-U-N, fun. That's it. Then over the course of, and I want to say I love this show, and I keep bringing it up in these bad ways. And it's so funny because I do love the show, But since The Walking Dead, that was kind of like a turning point for conventions, because people could see that, and kind of like the Jamie Lee Curtis only convention appearance, that first one she did, I think it was a Horror Hound or something, to raise money for charity, mind you. But it was kind of like everybody woke up and said, these promoters said, oh my God, we can make a fucking boatload of money. And then it was only The Walking Dead, only the big movie or the Netflix or the special, Supernatural. Very few had the smaller reunions from movies, like Return of the Living Dead was, that was like a good movie to have a reunion, but that was a lesser, that wasn't the main, reason to come out to the convention, because we have, the stars of whatever is number one. And that kind of changed the whole convention experience. The convention's turning into nothing but a profit place. Yeah, you could still see people that you liked and have some fun and talk with them and stuff. But a lot of people thought it was super easy to have a convention. I saw more people put them on and go into massive, like $50,000, $100,000 debt. So it was a one-off. So it like did a lot of people under in that regard. And on the other side of it, if it was too big, the indies would not get invited. So whereas it used to just be a fun place to meet people, and if someone got something from your table, bonus, just a bonus, just fun.
I wanted to ask you, you said that you were a street kid, or that you knew the street life and stuff, and I have that in common with you. I wanted to know how the raw things that we've probably both seen, so I know what you've probably seen, like how the raw things that you experienced out on the streets affected your ability to act in realism and such things as that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's funny because at first it's the very thing that stopped me from being able to. And I even had acting teachers in the very beginning, mind you, but still they said to me, this is going to be harder for you than anyone else in this room. And I was so, blocked and locked and shut out. I didn't even know really what she meant. I heard the words, it made sense, but I didn't know why. I didn't understand what she was talking about. So many years later, I do. And I think that once you get in touch with some of that really horrible old stuff, that you actually have more stuff to give than anybody else, because you've just tapped into like the well of all, of everything, of humanity. You've tapped into that. And if you can harness that and express it and use it and get the kind of roles where anything like that is required, or something that is unexpressible in words, you're going to be able to express it in just being, just through the eyes, just through movement, because it's in your cells. But the only thing I would say from A to B to be aware of is when I was going through that process, and just in the very beginning, like when I just started to like open myself up to myself, because as an actor, you have to be insanely in touch with your emotions. And it was my job to survive, to not be in touch with my emotions. So they're like polar opposites. So when I started with the breathing classes and letting go and acting and all this, it was like a tsunami. And I literally had agoraphobia for at least a year, because I was so, everything was just, it was so too overwhelming. I mean, I probably needed 10 therapists really to deal with all that stuff, but it passed. I had, massive anxiety attacks, and that was just me. I'm not saying that's a horrible, I hope not, but I'm just saying, like, it's not a bad thing, even if that does happen, even if there is anxiety that comes up, because that is the gateway that you have to cross to get in touch with the gold. And nobody else has that level of gold a lot of people go into acting or directing or writing and they have no experience. They've never experienced hardship in any way, shape, or form. And so they don't have anything to sort of like draw from. And you've got like the gold. So you've been given such a gift. You'll never know until the day comes where you use it and people see it. So it's actually a wonderful thing, even it may not seem like it. It's a beautiful thing.
Actress, writer, director, Debbie Rochon. You can learn more by visiting debbierochon.com. Tune in next time for more Filmmaking Confidential. It is totally free to subscribe, and when you subscribe, you'll get upcoming new episodes automatically, and you'll have free access to all our past shows. Please remember to rate and review. The Filmmaking Confidential podcast is a production of Dakanga Audio and produced by myself and Ella Spencer. Our theme music is composed by Kevin Robles. For more of the Filmmaking Confidential podcast, head over to filmmakingconfidential.com. If you have a question about filmmaking you'd like answered on the podcast, send me an email using the contact form on the website. To learn more of my filmmaking secrets, be sure to pick up a copy of the book, Filmmaking Confidential, available on Audible, paperback, and ebook, wherever books are sold. I'm Steve Balderson. Thanks for listening and spreading the word. Until next time, keep making, keep doing, keep going.